Hey YouTube, tonight I want to take a quick look at the concept of cutting weight for your competition. Now whether you're in mixed martial arts, getting ready for a fight, or getting ready for a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu tournament, you got wrestling matches coming up, boxing matches, whatever the case may be, cutting weight is a concept used in almost all of these areas. So I wanted to kind of share my perspective on cutting weight and how I actually do not promote cutting weight for your event, but if you are going to do it, and there are people out there that will, how you can do it properly and remain hydrated, remain nourished, and get through the whole ordeal and be able to perform at your optimal levels for the fight. So jumping right into it, why I don't promote cutting weight. First and foremost, I think it's a perspective issue. And I feel like a couple quotes from Grandmaster Elio and Master Hickson that kind of explain themselves. First being from Elio: always assume that your opponent is going to be bigger, stronger, and faster than you, so that you learn to rely on technique, timing, and leverage rather than brute strength. And Hickson, he's got a famous one that I really like. You've probably seen it. If you're not comfortable to deal with an opponent 50 pounds heavier than you, there's something wrong with your jiu-jitsu. If you're not comfortable to fight with no time limit, there's something wrong with your jiu-jitsu. I feel like that translates over into any martial art. If you're feeling like you need a size and strength advantage, so you're going to cut down from a heavier weight to try to get that, I feel like your perspective is in the wrong area. As martial artists, I think that we should learn to get comfortable fighting anybody, no matter their size or strength, and learn how to deal with all types of opponents, because that's what's realistic in the real world. You know, on the battlefield, it didn't matter how big or how strong. You were forced to fight anybody that came your way, whether they had a strength advantage on you or not. And out on the street, you know, when you encounter people and someone's trying to take something from you, there isn't going to be any weight classes out in the real world. So I think it's important to keep the martial arts as realistic as possible. Now, I understand that all of these events have their own separate rules and things like that you got to get around, but the spirit of the martial art needs to remain, and that's to be able to defend yourself effectively against anybody. The first kind of problem I have with cutting weight is just the hydration issue. If you're going through a fight camp and you take 4 to 6 weeks to get ready for that, and say you already have pre-existing injuries or you accumulate some injuries through that fight camp, you're going to need every benefit you can get to recover from that and to be able to perform at your optimal level for that event. And in order to do that, water being your probably #1 resource besides breathing air, you're going to need to be properly hydrated in order to recover, in order to keep your strength up, in order to keep your energy levels high, to keep your mentality in the right spot, keep your morale high. And the whole concept of cutting weight, I feel like, really diminishes a lot of those areas before you even step into the ring or step onto the mat. So the cons to me kind of outweigh the pros. Cutting down from a heavier weight class in order to gain an advantage that I don't really believe is there. So those things by themselves alone, I think, for me anyways, kind of cut out the need to cut weight. There's also kind of a cultural thing with it where people feel like in order to properly get ready for their event that they need to suffer as much as possible to get there, and I just don't think that that's true. When I choose to fight at my own weight class and I have good strength and endurance and my recovery is good, my body feels good because I'm properly hydrated and nourished, I'm able to compete much better than if I totally deplete myself before I step into that ring. So that's just kind of a brief summary of my perspective on why I don't promote cutting weight. Now, there are going to be people that choose to cut weight, and sometimes it is necessary to shed a few pounds before get to that event. So things come up, for whatever reason, I may be over a few pounds, and I need to have the tools available to me to be able to reach that, just because of the rules of the event. So to jump right into it, if I'm going to cut weight, how do I do it properly? Number one is going to be my diet to start. And if you aren't already on a good diet, which a lot of fighters just kind of eat however they want, and then when it's time to get ready for a fight, they change their diet up. Now I think for longevity's sake, you should eat this way all the time, but some people don't. So start about 4 to 6 weeks, look at roughly starting your training camp. And when I get on my diet, what kind of foods I want to eat. I'm going to want to eat whole raw foods. It's going to be different for everybody, but my diet in particular, I choose to stick with a lot of fruit and a lot of starchy foods. Fruit being a big major part of my intake, especially water-dense fruits like watermelon, grapefruit, oranges, mangoes, papaya, cactus pears, whatever you can find that has a lot of water in it. Can keep you good and hydrated, aside from the water consumption that you're already taking. So I'll eat a lot of water dense fruits, a lot of bananas that are calorie dense, apples. I mean, you just got to kind of find for yourself what kind of fruit is good, but fruit is a good main staple for your diet. Now I'll also eat vegetables a lot too. I'll eat tomatoes and cucumbers. Those are also water dense, but mostly with veggies I'll eat a lot of leafy stuff: kale, spinach, collards, romaine lettuce, things like that. So a lot of fruit, vegetables, and then my favorite would be starchy foods like potatoes, rice, both white or brown, beans, things like that that provide a lot of good energy and actually help kind of settle my system. Because when you're intaking a lot of fruit, sometimes that can give you loose guts and you need something to kind of solidify everything. But also the starchy foods, I feel like, do that, and they also provide me with good energy, and I feel really good. They're really good, clean foods. So those are a major part of what I eat. Now when it comes to the concept of protein, I do eat meat. I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat it a lot. It's not my main source of calories. And the way that I'll eat it, I guess, trying to stay away from like charred meats, you know, cooking stuff up on the grill, frying things, fried chicken, things of that nature I try to stay away from. I'll steam my meat, mostly chicken, steam it, low temperature cooking, crock pot, those types of methods of cooking my meat. Also I eat fish. I don't eat it a lot, but I will eat fish. I love sushi, and I think it's a little bit isn't going to hurt you, and it feels pretty good when I eat that stuff. So moving on from that, diet is probably the first key that you're going to look at when it comes to shedding pounds. I feel like within probably a week of changing my diet up, depending on how my diet already is, I can drop, you know, anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds in the first week just from my diet. Now the second thing is going to be my hydration, and if I can make weight just by diet, I'll do that. But if I need to shed some water weight, I have a process for that too that goes with it. So I like to stay hydrated with probably a gallon plus a day. More so 2 weeks out, making sure that I'm drinking a gallon plus a day. Part of that's going to be with the fruit intake, also getting hydration from that. But I'll consume about a gallon plus a day, and what that does is it tricks my body into pissing out all that water. So I have a large intake of water, so my body ends up flushing a lot of that out, and my body gets used to doing that. Now the 2 weeks out from the event, I want to make sure that I have enough salt in my diet to retain that hydration while I'm training and dealing with the output of my training regimen. And so I'll do that all the way up until 24 hours of the weigh-in. So whatever time the weigh-in is of that day, I'll cut back 24 hours. That's where I'll stop my water intake. And so my body's so used to flushing out all that water that it continues to do so. Now those, probably the last 2 days before the weigh-in is when I'll cut my salt, but I'm still drinking a ton of water. And then that 24 hours prior, I'll cut my water, and then my body is just flushing out all that hydration. Now hopefully you can reach your weight at that point just with that alone. And also just a quick note too, I also eat all the way up until the weigh-in, the time of weigh-in. And I don't like to starve myself because I feel like it slows my metabolism down, so I won't do that. I'll continue to eat the entire time, all the way up until weigh-in. The day of weigh-in, it's nothing but chewing on, leaves of spinach, chewing on some bell pepper, things really light, and not consuming a lot of dense foods or anything like that. Nothing but leafy vegetables really, and maybe some bell pepper and things of that nature. So the reason why I do that is because it's good for my mentality. It keeps my mind busy. That way I'm not suffering the whole time. And it keeps my metabolism going, keeps my body active so that I'm constantly shedding. So, and if you've done all of this and you still, day of weigh-ins, haven't reached your optimal weight, the way that I like to shed those last few pounds of water is, and it's pretty generic, but everybody hits the sauna, and that's one way to do it. Especially if you got teammates, it's not a bad deal to be able to hop in there with your teammates and cut those last few pounds. But if you don't have a sauna available to you, there are other methods that you can use that are helpful and can achieve the same result. So if you don't have a sauna, look at taking a really hot bath. So fill your tub up with really hot water, as hot as you can stand. Hop in there and totally submerge your body as best as you can, and just wait it out in there as long as you can. Get your body really, really hot, get your core really, really hot. Hop out, dry off with a towel, and insulate yourself. So when I went to Worlds 2 years ago to compete, I needed to cut a few pounds because I had to be at weight with my gi on. So I took a really hot bath, hopped out, dried off, and I took the comforter off of my hotel bed and just threw it over myself and made kind of a little sweat lodge. Made sure that there wasn't any outside air getting into it, and just sat there and sweat and sweat and sweat. And then I hop out, dry off, maybe hop on the scale real quick, check my weight. I still need a little bit more, hop right back underneath there, and just wait and sweat and sweat and sweat. Do the same thing. And it should only take one time to do that, depending on where you're at. So I think it's really important, first off, to try to make that weight through diet. If you can't make it through diet, do it through flushing your system with water. Some people recommend 2 gallons. 2 weeks out, all the way up until the last week, and then do 1 gallon. Then cut your salt, then cut your water. I think drinking 2 gallons is miserable, so that doesn't really work for me. But 1 gallon plus, and if you need to, you can also make like a homemade Gatorade. I should have mentioned this earlier, but to get that gallon, I'll make a gallon pitcher of water, cut a lemon, juice that thing on like a hand juicer, put it in there, throw the lemon in there, stir it around, get a salt grinder and grind a bunch of salt in there, stir that around, and throw it in the fridge overnight. And then the next day I got a gallon of homemade lemonade that's got electrolytes in it. It's got the salt to help keep me hydrated so I'm not just flushing my system. And it's really good for you, and then you're pulling your water from your fruit and things like that, so you're properly hydrated, you got good energy for training. It just works out really well. So that's kind of how I recommend doing it properly. That way you don't have to totally kill yourself. You can still eat all the way up until weigh-in and be good and feel good and be at your optimal peak performance for your competition the next day. So I don't recommend doing things unnaturally like diuretics, and I've heard of fighters doing enemas to flush out their system. And there's also creams like albaline that open your pores up. It's like a cosmetic, and the fighters will rub it all over themselves and then go like sit in the hot tub with like a sweatsuit on or something and just sweat. And I think that can be dangerous. So try not to do things unnaturally. Try to just utilize my system's natural ability to get rid of toxins and to flush my system and just kind of manipulate them in a natural way. So that's kind of how I look at it. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions or if you want me to go into detail on anything further, just hit me up, send me a video response, or find me on Facebook, and I'd certainly love to get back to you or hear your thoughts. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thank you guys.